My name is Sarah, and for the past 10 years, I've worked alongside my husband, John, in his family's small but warm company. It's a modest enterprise, led by my father-in-law, Richard, a man of quiet wisdom and steady discipline. We only have 6 employees, yet the energy that fills the office makes it feel much larger than it is. Richard rarely interferes with the daily work, preferring to let John take the reins. John, ever the hard-working and devoted son, handles most of the company's operations, meeting clients, securing contracts, and keeping the business afloat. Watching him work tirelessly has always made me proud. It feels like we're building something together, not just a company, but a shared dream. When major projects come around, the office buzzes with life. Phones ring, papers shuffle, and laughter echoes in the break room. Those moments, where everyone pulls together to make something happen, are the ones I cherish most. But even amid all the teamwork, one person stood apart: my mother-in-law, Nancy. Nancy had once worked at the company herself. After I joined the family, she decided to retire, claiming she had earned her rest. Yet instead of relaxing gracefully, she redirected her energy into watching and judging everything I did, both at work and at home. One afternoon, after returning home early to prepare dinner while John stayed late at the office, Nancy cornered me in the kitchen. Her sharp voice sliced through the calm. "How long do you plan to cling to our family business?" Her words, coated in venom, made my stomach twist. I tried to stay calm. "What do you mean by cling?" I asked softly. Nancy crossed her arms, glaring at me as though I had committed a crime. "You think I don't see it? You married my son just to secure your job here. You needed stability, and you latched onto him for it." I sighed inwardly. The same accusation. Again. She had no idea that I'd left my previous position by choice, not desperation. I had a degree, certifications, and a stable career before joining John's company. I wanted to help the family business grow, but in Nancy's eyes, every decision I made was rooted in manipulation. "Mom," I said carefully, "I chose to work with John. It wasn't out of need, it was because I wanted to." Her dismissive laugh echoed down the hall. "I've lived long enough to see through your kind, Sarah. Don't try to fool me." That was Nancy, unyielding and convinced that her perspective was always right. At home, things weren't any easier. Despite quitting her job to manage the household, Nancy rarely lifted a finger. My father-in-law, Richard, often tried to reason with her, but she'd simply say, "I've worked my whole life. It's the daughter-in-law's turn to do the chores." And so, most evenings, I found myself preparing dinner, doing dishes, and managing the home on top of my office duties. One bright afternoon, after cleaning up yet another messy kitchen, I decided to address the issue gently. "Nancy," I began cautiously, "I've noticed the dishes are often left in the sink. Could you please tidy up after your meals? It would really help." Her reaction was immediate and explosive. "Are you ordering me around in my own house? Who do you think you are?" Her voice thundered through the kitchen. My heart pounded, but I tried to stay calm. "I didn't mean it that way, Mom. I just thought." "You thought wrong," she snapped. Realizing the argument was going nowhere, I took a deep breath and said, "Let's talk about this later, okay?" Then I turned back to the stove, stirring the soup as my hands trembled slightly. From the doorway, I could feel her glare burning into my back before she stormed off to the living room. Richard and John had witnessed her behavior countless times. They often tried to intervene, gently reminding Nancy to be kinder, to stop turning every conversation into a battle. But each attempt only made her angrier. She would lash out at them for taking my side, and her resentment toward me only deepened. Over time, her disapproval became my daily shadow. Her words weren't violent, but they cut deep, soft enough to pass as conversation, sharp enough to leave a mark. Then came the morning that changed everything. It started like any other day. I had just finished cleaning up after breakfast and was getting ready to leave for work. My bag sat near the front door, filled with important documents. As I reached for my shoes, Nancy's voice pierced the air. "Oh my, what a mess of trash here." Before I could respond, she grabbed a bucket of water and dumped it all over my handbag. I froze, stunned. The sound of water splashing against the floor echoed like thunder in my ears. My documents, phone, and purse were soaked. "What are you doing?" I gasped. Nancy shrugged with a mocking smile. Oh, that was your stuff? I thought it was trash. Anger surged through me. Even if you thought it was trash, who pours water on it? The carpet's soaked, and my papers. She watched me scramble to save the dripping documents, completely unmoved. Then, with an unnervingly calm tone, she said, "You don't need those anymore." I stopped, blinking in confusion. What are you talking about? You've been clinging to this house for 10 years. Sarah, it's time for you to leave. My daughter, Jessica, is joining the company now. We don't need you. Her words struck me like a blow. Leave? You mean? Today, she interrupted. Pack your things and apologize to John and your father-in-law for the trouble you've caused. Then go. I felt the room spin. I've devoted myself to this family for years, I whispered. And this is how you repay me? Nancy smirked. Don't act innocent. Jessica's back from Manhattan. She'll take your place. She deserves it more than you ever did. She handed me an envelope, my resignation letter, already written in her handwriting. I was speechless. I walked the short distance to the company, trembling with anger and heartbreak. When I told Richard and John what had happened, both men fell silent. Their faces shifted from disbelief to quiet fury. Richard exhaled deeply. She actually wrote your resignation letter? John clenched his jaw. This has gone too far. After a long conversation, they gently suggested I take a break, a vacation. You've worked non-stop for years, Richard said kindly. Let her think she's won for now. Take some time for yourself. It wasn't what I wanted, but maybe they were right. While I was away, Jessica officially joined the company. She arrived late on her very first day, past 1 in the afternoon, and spent most of her time scrolling through her phone. Richard and John tried to guide her, but she brushed off their advice with irritation. Days later, I received a tearful phone call from Jessica. Mom said it would be easy, she sobbed, but John and Dad keep saying I'm doing everything wrong. Jessica, I asked gently, how good are you with computers? She hesitated. I watch videos online. I know how to play games. Her uncertainty spoke volumes. I asked about Word, Excel, basic accounting, but her answers were vague. She clearly had no idea what she was doing. So I gave her clear instructions, detailing every responsibility she'd have to handle: emails, schedules, taxes, accounting. I spoke firmly but calmly, reminding her that professionalism mattered. As I listed everything, I could hear her begin to cry harder. This isn't what I signed up for. I didn't come home for this. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in silence, looking out at the passing scenery from my train window. A small, weary smile crossed my face. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, not revenge, but justice. The truth was beginning to reveal itself. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what would come next. After everything that happened, I began to realize that not everyone in Manhattan was cold-hearted. In fact, it felt like the truly cold-hearted ones were rare, people like my mother-in-law, Nancy, and her daughter Jessica, who had schemed together to push me out of the family. A week after leaving my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew confrontation was inevitable. As soon as I stepped into the living room, Nancy appeared, her face flushed red with anger. Her voice was sharp and trembling with fury. "How dare you make my daughter cry? You won't get away with this," she shouted, her hands trembling as she pointed at me. For a moment, it looked as though she might actually grab me. John and his father, Richard, quickly stepped in, blocking her path. "Mom, calm down," John said firmly, holding up a hand. Richard placed a steadying hand on Nancy's shoulder, but she shook him off, her anger boiling over. John sighed heavily before speaking again, this time with measured calmness. "Jessica is crying because she was scolded at work for trying to boss people around and making mistakes. That's not Sarah's fault. Besides, Sarah hasn't even been here for a week. How could she possibly have upset Jessica?" His tone was patient but firm, as if trying to bring reason into a situation clouded by emotion. Nancy, however, wasn't ready to listen. "It's because of her. This woman is the reason Jessica's suffering," she snapped, her voice cracking with misplaced emotion. I stayed quiet, trying to keep my composure. "Where is Jessica now?" I finally asked. Looking around, the house felt strangely empty. She's locked herself in her room, John explained, rubbing his forehead. She keeps saying she doesn't want to go to work anymore. That didn't surprise me. Jessica had always been proud but unprepared. Without the proper skills, she must have found the job overwhelming. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little sad for her. Nancy turned to me again, her eyes filled with accusation. You've been poisoning John and Richard against me, haven't you? Otherwise, they wouldn't say the company ran better under you than under Jessica. I was taken aback by her words. The years of misunderstanding and resentment behind them felt heavy. It was clear she had always seen me as a rival rather than family. John exhaled deeply, clearly exhausted by his mother's stubbornness. Mom, he began gently, Sarah is really talented. She's certified in bookkeeping. She handles multiple languages, and she's incredibly organized. She's not just helping, she's holding things together. Nancy looked stunned, as if she was hearing about me for the first time. What? That sounds like something out of a TV drama, she said incredulously. I smiled faintly, then added, actually, back in college, I spent all my time earning certifications and studying. I didn't even join clubs or go out much. That's how I met John, through work. Nancy didn't respond, so John continued. She's been handling everything, accounting, schedules, negotiations, even employee management. She made the company run smoothly. Mom, things were much better when she was there. Nancy's mouth fell open in disbelief. For once, she seemed speechless. Just then, Richard spoke up, his tone unexpectedly serious. We're going to shut down the company soon, he said quietly. Jessica made a major mistake. She was supposed to prepare some important documents, but instead, she decided to handle phone calls because it seemed more fun. While John and I were away, she was rude to a representative from Company A. I got a call confirming it myself. I gasped and covered my mouth. I can't believe Jessica would do that. I whispered. The realization hit me, her carelessness could destroy everything John and Richard had built. Richard nodded gravely. After that call, the other company suggested maybe it's time to merge. The president of Company A offered to absorb our business. It might actually be the best option. For John and me, this was unexpectedly good news. A merger meant stability, growth, and less family chaos. But Nancy's reaction was immediate and explosive. What are you saying? That's not acceptable. John must become the president. This company is ours, she shouted, her voice echoing through the living room. It was clear, she cared more about the title of being the president's wife than the actual survival of the company. At that moment, Jessica, who had been upstairs crying, came running down the stairs. Her eyes were red, her expression tense. What's going on? She demanded. Before she could speak further, Richard calmly set a stack of papers on the table. Nancy, he said firmly, I'm divorcing you. The room went still. Even John froze. I stared at Richard in shock. He continued, his voice steady but cold. You've made no effort to change. You neglect this household, disrespect your family, and spend your days out with other men. I'm done supporting you. Nancy's face went pale. What? Divorce? After everything I've done for this family? She cried. Richard's patience finally snapped. What have you done, Nancy? You haven't worked. You haven't cared for this home. And you've embarrassed us in public. Is wasting our money on strangers your idea of devotion? It was the first time I'd ever seen him this angry. Jessica stood frozen, her mouth open. Dad, wait, Mom might be wrong, but I'm still your daughter. Her voice trembled, caught between fear and desperation. Richard turned to her sharply. Jessica, you're not innocent either. You quit your job, you disrespect everyone, and you live here doing nothing. You've inherited your mother's arrogance. It's time you learned to stand on your own. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. You can't be serious? But he was. I've already made arrangements. A friend of mine runs a factory with dormitories. You'll both be working there. They're coming to pick you up soon. Pack your things. The room fell silent except for the sound of Nancy sobbing. She packed her things reluctantly, her hands trembling as she signed the divorce papers. Jessica followed, stunned and silent. When the car arrived to take them away, neither looked back. After they left, the house felt lighter, quieter. In the following days, John, Richard, and I focused on the merger. We spoke with employees, explained the transition, and started planning for the future. Despite everything, hope returned. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. When I told John and Richard, their faces lit up with joy. Even the president of Company A congratulated us and arranged for someone to take over my work so I could rest. For the first time in a long time, life felt calm, peaceful. Even John and Richard worked harder than ever, not just for themselves, but for our growing family. And as I stood by their side, I realized that love, patience, and truth could rebuild even the most broken home.